not sure people are losing their minds over players doing the Trump dance on the field. It's fine. But they did lose their minds when NFL players like Colin Kaepernick did not take a political stance, but took a social justice stance. There's a distinction between those two things. It is interesting that there's been this big turnaround, it seems.
Yeah, it is. You know, you look at all the times that any player was kneeling or anything, you know, they all had this kind of conviction within themselves that this is what I believe, this is what I'm going to do. They articulated it very well to the media, starting with Colin Kaepernick. And you saw the video where a lot of the media, the conservative media and conservatives were really pushing against these NFL players to get them to stop talking about politics. But then, you know, you fast forward to today, and people are having a little fun with the Trump dance. Now, the Trump dance is it's weird, it's new-ish, and it's ridiculous, so which also makes it trendy.
Right. Yeah. It's like a TikTok dance.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Right. And so I don't think that's going to be something that players are going to be doing into next year. It's just kind of something new that players are doing, and they all when you make a play, you celebrate. You want to do something that's fun and trendy, and they're doing the Donald Trump dance because that's the fun and trendy thing right now.
I don't think it's right to equate this Trump dance, which I agree with you, it's kind of a fun, trendy thing that's going on, with the overt political statements that some players were attempting to make, but then also these whole sort of cultural movements that were built around some of these players to try to force everyone else to participate in it. I see these things as totally different. I don't see these players necessarily participating in politics as much as they are just sort of participating in the current pop culture. I think they're two totally different things. And these players are not out there trying to browbeat their teammates into joining them if they don't want to.
But there are players and there are sports representatives that are doing exactly that. Not browbeating people, but look at Logan Paul. Look at the MMA right now. There are people who are standing there wearing mega hats and they're making political statements around making sure you support Donald Trump. I'm just saying, let's get this even. I agree with what Nate said. It was wrong for a black player to do what, people do in churches, people do when they ask a person to marry them, take a knee. It's called respect. People don't understand that, but when the black player did it, it was not respectful. Okay,
which he learned from a Green Beret, by the way.
Yeah.
Green Beret suggested that he do that.
Yeah, well, let me just play. I mean, some people have short memories, but here's how Donald Trump responded to Colin Kaepernick taking a knee.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
So to be clear, I mean, I really do think we have got to make a distinction. You cannot like what Colin Kaepernick did, but he wasn't saying, oh, go vote for Barack Obama. He was talking about a set of issues that are actually outside of politics. And Donald Trump had that reaction to it, and it had actual consequences for him and his career in the NFL.
It absolutely did. This was a push for advocacy and policy reforms. And as someone who lives in the black body and has seen, even in my own family, police brutality and what that looks like, I think that, seeing somebody take the level of stance that he did, having the name, the image, the brand that he did mattered. It mattered to the movement. This was not a collective, let's all cheer and celebrate moment. This was to elevate an issue that was happening throughout the community. And I think that for him, it was something that he took a stance on because with his name, with his brand, he knew that it could shape people's lives in the same way that we saw with Muhammad Ali, in the same way that we've seen it with a ton of black people during the civil rights movement, many of which who were also major athletes. He put his career on the line. He knew that he would be putting his career on the line, but to have a sitting president of the United States make the types of comments that Donald Trump did, to not only target Colin Kaepernick, but to also, it had its own reverberating effects on the community that was also doing that work and had been doing it long before Colin Kaepernick ever took a knee.
So now we're talking about not just taking a knee, but potentially, as Montel was saying, MAGA hats at the MMA games, maybe on football fields. That's okay?
There's already been one on a football field, and that player lost his opportunity, right? Did they kick him out of the league? They fired him?
Well, no, Nick Bosa, who's a big Trump guy, he's the one that
he
interrupted.
Ducked into that commercial? Yeah.
He interrupted the interview, a post-game interview, and stuck his hat out there days before the election. And he got fined like $12 grand for that.
Okay.
Americans love a comeback. So do sports players. So do the guys in the sports field. I mean, I'm with Scott. I'm not sure what we're talking about here. The guys are doing a dance. I think it shows the kinship that Donald Trump has with some of his folks out there. But I agree. I don't think this is going to be going on forever. And I'm not sure I see the comparison here of what we're talking
I
about.
also think there's something to be said for the marketplace here. I mean, who do you think's in an NFL stadium? Who do you think's at the MMA fight? Probably a lot
Two
of
different
Trump.
demographics.
Probably a lot of.
Exactly. One's a lot more diverse than the other one, but
Probably
there's
a lot of
different
Trump,
demographics.
Probably a lot of Trump people. And
Yeah, for a
so,
long time, a lot of females went to that Kansas City
I mean,
game.
is
I'm
it-
just
so I guess
saying,
what I'm
so
saying
if
is
I
like,
were- if I were
does
in
it
a-
does
a
it
situ-
take that much courage? I mean, some of the commentators that we played earlier basically were suggesting that they are so free now of retribution
I totally
to
agree
come
with that.
forward as a Trump.
Absolutely.
But to your point, these are conservative audiences. You're not getting a badge of courage
but
for doing that in
Trump's
an
winning-
MMA.
I do think
stadium.
Trump's winning unlocked. I agreed with what Jesse Waters said in the clip, actually. I do think it unlocked a certain number of people who probably previously felt like culturally they would not be looked upon well if they did express any kind of political preference for Trump. He goes out and wins, and now all of a sudden they do a 3-second dance to say, hey, I think this is kind of cool.
They never felt like Joe Biden would say the types of things that he said about Colin Kaepernick from the podium. What they might have felt was a certain level of social pressure from people around them, but not in that stadium, because those are also majority
media
Trump
pressure,
supporters,
social
but not
pressure.
necessarily
I mean,
from
look
the White
at the sports journalism industry. It has 100% gone completely off the left side of the ditch. I mean, what do you think would have happened to any of these players if they had done this during the election? I mean, it would have been an avalanche coming down on them. And the entire sports journalism field has gone so far to the left, it is no longer has any connection to its audience whatsoever.
But you just said that these are audiences, the sports themselves have conservative-leaning audiences. So, I mean, that doesn't seem like a huge
but the
amount.
journalists are different.
Right,
I think the sports
fans
journalists
are paying for the tickets. The fans are funding the games and the
I know,
stadium.
but-
I don't think sports journalism is any less diverse than traditional journalism, in the sense that a lot of people
probably right about
a lot
that.
of people who are already leaning right are also following the sports journalists either online via podcast or whatever, who also lean right. So they're reinforcing their own biases.
I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but I watch ESPN just like everybody else, and to me, it is not in any way, shape, or form reflective of the political leanings that you'd find in any sports stadium in America.
I mean, there are definitely right-leaning sports commentators. You were going to say something?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that people, this goes back to my texting chain of my buddies. The one thing they kept reiterating is that, yeah, I feel like I can go out there and say, yeah, I can put on a MAGA hat. I was in Southern California recently. I was walking around. I saw MAGA hats. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, man, I don't think this would have happened a year ago. I don't even think this would have happened 2 months ago, much less. I do think there is a feeling of freedom on that where people felt pressured, like they couldn't step forward and say how they truly felt.